How many times you do the same B-roll? How many every single week? You have like all these you put in your little basement. You go down there and you're like, oh, look at me in my basement. I'm a rugby player. I was looking at all the B-roll I've got. Here's WWE champion. Here's King of the Egbelu.
You're the only one on this program in your basement.
Please wait across Philadelphia Street at North 9th Street. Wait for the walk signal, will you? This is Jimmy Stewart, and Indiana was my hometown. And when you do cross, if you run into somebody, don't stop and talk.
This is the Rugby Odds, where an unlikely pundit panel of a wordsmith, a WWE legend, a rugby star, and a supermodel scour the globe, seeking best bets and bad behavior. Are you not entertained? Fuck yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we deserve it. Yeah, and you know what? You deserve it too. You deserve a good show, and we got one for you. But we need you to do us a favor and tell your friends about us. Tell people about us so they watch us. That's a key component of this whole thing. But look in the sponsor opportunity green room. You'll see my colleagues, WWE Hall of Famer turned rugby advocate John Bradshaw Layfield, King Gift Egbelu, the inventor of words. And look at the Your Company name here, Slate. You'll see we got a full show, man. Yeah, including George Hook, the Irish legend, calling in again. So let's get to it. Guys, another very good week. 81-48. 81-48. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. Now, you know, it includes the MLR odds, which our staff comes up with because they're not readily available. And when they do come out, they're crazy. So there's a lot of opportunity to make some money. But anything stick out for you last week, John, before we get to the wooden spoon?
Yeah, the teams that I mentioned last week were good teams. Chicago, Dallas, and Miami. They're really good rugby teams. They don't know how to win. I mean, Chicago 26-0 ahead. Dallas had Houston on the ropes. By the way, Houston and Seattle beat each other up so bad, both of them couldn't play well this week. That's a real factor when playing a physical game like that. Even though these guys are pros, 7 days later, they have a tough time at coming back on the field and playing another physical game. You see it in the NFL, you see it in any kind of combat sports. And then Miami has the game won also against San Diego. I mean, those are three good teams that Chicago, Dallas, and Miami had beat, and then they end up slipping up at the end. But what it tells you is these teams are going to be factors in the second half of this season because they are really good teams and they're getting much better. They are loaded with great players.
Yeah, but I got to argue with you because if you're a really good team,
well, you're going to be wrong, you dummy.
You win at home, especially when you have huge leads. You can't blow those leads like Chicago blew and Miami blew and be called a good team. They're, you know, Miami's the best 1-4 team out there, and Chicago's arguably the best 1-3-1 team out there, but they're not great teams. If they're choking like
I didn't say they were great
teams. You said they were great teams.
No, I didn't. I said they were good teams. They're good teams loaded with great players. And you can't argue that because if you do, you're dumb.
Oh, wait, hold on. We're going to the TMO out at Citi Field.
They were great teams. They were great teams. They were great teams. They were great teams.
See, the TMO can work. Yeah.
Culture, man. John talking about how those teams are going to be something for the second half. I think a team that we need to wrap up. Their one win against the Free Jacks, I think that was Fugazi because Old Glory only able to get 46 against Anthem. I got questions. I got a lot of questions on that one. Like, you know, we've been seeing it. And then the other half of it is, you know what? Everybody gets one. Crusaders finally broke their cherry and finally got their first win against.
What was that? What was that?
I said everybody gets one. Everybody gets one. You know what? Still a downfall situation. Chiefs should have won that game.
So you're saying the Crusaders fucking won? Huh? Who picked them last week? I did.
Who picked them the last 6 weeks?
Chances.
You had 6 weeks you picked them. You're 1-5.
Speaking of which, we always have the business of the wooden spoon, and we can't run from the truth. And the truth is that none of us.
I want to ask King a question. Chicago, Dallas, and Miami. Is it just a lack of depth? The reason that they're losing these games late because these teams are is it a matter of a winning culture?
No, it is culture. That is a culture issue. They are not used to it. Miami, we saw before, sloppy whenever it matters most. Chicago has all the talent. They've had all the talent, and they continue to still puke it up when it matters most. I think Dallas is just a developing team. I think of all the three teams, Dallas has just been a steady increase over time. But Chicago and Miami, those teams are legitimately loaded teams. So for them to keep coughing it up when it matters most, I think that is a culture issue, and that is one that they're going to have to figure out by the second half. But again, Miami, at least you have the excuse of 1 year. Chicago,
yeah, Chicago had a couple tries the week before that they should have had. I mean, they would have changed.
They're not tackling. Chicago did not tackle in the second half. As fundamental as that sounds, they were looking at other guys to make tackles. They were stepping. There was too many gaps. There was too many holes over and over and over again. Sam Windsor was playing at center for Seattle because, you talk about attrition, you talk about and I'm not knocking Sam, but Sam's a 10 or a 15 at the end of his career, and he's playing center, and he got in the try zone.
They're up 26-0, and you blame it on simply not tackling?
Yeah, because they took the rest of the afternoon off, and they didn't tackle. It was awful. I'm watching the game. I'm like, what are you doing?
What about their offense?
That too. All right, the business of the wooden spoon. Again, we've had another week where we've all had good records, so none of us can get the wooden spoon. But we do have a team that went in and lost to Dragons, and that's Zebre in the battle of the wooden spoon. Good Lord. How can you lose that match?
Bennington took all the win from Italy. That's it. Bennington took all the wins. There wasn't any more left for Zebre.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break and welcome in George Hook.
Need a great price on a new vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. Easy Price shows you our lowest prices on the Mid-Atlantic's largest selection. Find your best price online or at any of our 31 dealerships.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
All right, it's time to welcome back in Mr. George Hook. George Hook, fellas.
Yes. George Hook is here.
Great to see you, George. How are you?
You Americans who doubt climate change, we want to come over here for a couple of weeks.
Well, it rains in Ireland? Come on. No way.
There's guys over here now actually building arcs and marching dogs and cats 2 by 2 up the gangplank. You have no idea.
I always said if you want to learn how to fight, be the third monkey going on the ark and it's starting to rain. That's when you learn how to fight.
And we got monkeys on this show to fight, George. So let's get you out of here before you float away. In Leinster, it was the Easter uprising as the home team went out and decimated the South African team, the Bulls. Gift is losing money on this one to me because we bet $2 Brazilian on it. I said Leinster was going to win. It was the home team with the flair, the power, the speed. And
Would
now
you quit bragging and ask a question?
And now going into the Champions Cup, George, everything's honky-dory. Everything's beautiful in Leinster, right?
No. First of all, just for anybody who doesn't know, they beat the Bulls, who were in second place. So really, Leinster are so far ahead in the ORC, it doesn't count. And they scored 7 tries, 6 converted, right? Interestingly, both fly halves were brothers, the Burden brothers. So one brother substitute for the other. But as the Bulls' right wing is scoring a try, he gets hit by an outrageous tackle. No arms, head first, everything by scrum half Luke McGrath. McGrath gets a yellow card. Now, I saw the replay on television 12 times, so I guess that TMO saw it. The TMO is in Egypt. The ref is in Egypt. The 2 touch judges are an Egypt. And then, to make matters worse, the 2 pundits on Irish television suggest that it was all the winger's fault for not avoiding this tackle, replicating the guy who said it was all Abraham Lincoln's fault. He should never have gone to the tailor. It was outrageous, but they've lost the plot. Meanwhile, across the channel, Harlequins are playing Bath. Harlequins lead 40 points 3. The Bat make an extraordinary comeback to 40 points 36, and then the Bat lock, who's on a yellow card, comes back after 7 minutes, not 10. It's another idiot, has nothing else to do except check 10 minutes, and he doesn't do it. I mean, we now have 5 people to referee a rugby game, and they can't get it right. So Leinster have Leicester.
That's fine.
Leicester are going to go down to 12. James
At
Whitcomb's heading
home
off
next
now.
week should be okay. Munster, who were awful against Cardiff, they were beyond awful, go to Northampton, who are top of the Premiership. I don't think Munster are going to come out of Franklin Gardens with a win. Meanwhile, Connacht, for the third time this season, lose a match in the dying seconds. Hard to believe. They're in front with 60 seconds in the clock, and with no seconds in the clock, they've lost. Ulster and Connacht will be in the subsidiary competition. Munster and Leinster will get through.
George, Munster is 1-2-1 in the Champions Cup. And the one draw was against Bayonne at home, 17-17. Munster has looked really good at times, really good. They've looked terrible at times too. What is going on with Munster? Is it a matter of injuries? Is it a matter of getting people back? Why are they so inconsistent?
They have failed to produce midfield backs, i.e. 12 and 13, for about 3 or 4 seasons now, and that's costing them dear. They're good at halfback with Casey and obviously Crowley. Crowley saved their bacon against Cardiff, but the number of errors they made, unforced errors, would be a real worry for them. Northampton will be a major problem, there's no doubt, but the balance of the season might be a big problem for them. I'm not convinced that they're there. Whereas I am convinced about Leinster, even though Leinster have 6 guys at the moment in the doctor's office, you still think they've got enough guys to fill it.
Hey, and George, I want to give you a little credit here. You say you're not Nostradamus, but last week I asked you, is Leinster that much better than everybody else? And your simple answer was yes. And then they went out there and boat raced the second best team in the URC. So you were pretty prescient in your comments.
Whoa, where'd you get that one, John?
Same place I'm going to got this Will Smith slap. I'm going to slap it.
Hey. Gift, I know that you're still reeling from losing the $2 Brazilian to yours truly, because I agreed with George. I said Leinster was going to wipe the floor with your Bulls. But do you have a question for George for the upcoming Champions Cup?
All right. The first one I really have is when it comes back to the South Africa and the and Leinster, really what we saw with the Bulls and Leinster. The 2 South African teams that lost this week, both of them played in Europe. The 2 South African teams that won played in South Africa. If it comes down to a championship, while Leinster is prohibitively better than the Bulls at home, is it really a significant gap? Or is it the advantage of location with these teams? Because we have seen it very consistently.
That's a hugely important question. Giv, I'm constantly amazed by your extraordinary in-depth knowledge of the game of rugby. Leinster have only lost 2 matches in the URC, one of them in South Africa against the Bulls. Now, I know these days jet travel is so much better than when the Wright brothers tried to do it for the first time, but it's a long journey down there. However, there's a huge amount of talk about the South African defence. And I was looking at an under 14 teams this weekend, and these 13-year-old kids are employing the South African defence, right? Now, this is essentially that the 4 backs come up hard and try and deny the ball getting to the wing. But I mean, the Bulls were exposed consistently out wide. This South African defence isn't exactly the answer to the Maiden's Prayer.
And the Irish was showing some flair and speed that you normally liken to the South African sides. And the weather wasn't a factor either. But, George, we also have some French teams in the Champions Cup. And I'm just wondering, is there any way in hell to try to predict what's going to happen between Toulouse at home versus Racing in this round? And Toulouse is favored by 11.5 points.
You know, I'm not an expert on this difference in the points.
Well, look at the room. Look at the room, George. Look at the room.
However, that's 5 howevers to try and get a word in edgewise. However, I think 11.5 points is a bit of an ask. Racing are top of the table. Racing are very, very good. I mean, La Rochelle are now 6th at the moment, I think, after a couple of great years, but they're still in there. I think the French teams, as long as I've known them, top 14, I think they start playing their first competitive game in about August, and they play their last competitive game in about June. The French domestic season is unbelievably punishing for the players. So if you're Racing and you're the coach or the manager or the president or the owner, you're thinking, hold on here, we can win this domestic championship. Maybe this European thing isn't all it's cracked up to be. So I've never been sure which French team's going to turn up anyway, as long as I've been watching them. And I first watched them when they came over here after World War II, and we thought they'd all be emaciated because they'd had no food. And they came over with 2 of the biggest second rows in the history of rugby union up to that point. So the French are good at surprise. And Dupont at club level is back playing super again, out half and scrum half. The Chinese have a great saying. It's called, "May you live in interesting times." And by God, are we living in interesting times, even if it is dopey referees.
All right, on that note, I want to thank Mr. George Hook for coming on once again.
Yeah, George Hook was here. Yeah, he was here.
Yes, yes.
Best combo in the business.
You need your cleats? You need them tomorrow? If you order today by 3 p.m. New York time or noon LA time, they can have them to you tomorrow. Young, old, male, female, if you're playing on turf, if you're playing on grass, if you're playing in the rain, you're playing in the heat, they've got you covered. RugbyNow.com. Go there now.
And we're back. Great to have George lending his insight once again. But now it's time for us to be on our own, fellas. And we have a lot to cover before we get out of here. Let's start with the MLR. John, who do you like in the upcoming weekend?
Utah has got Anthem coming in. It's a cross-country trip. Travel is always tough, no matter who it is. I think that Utah covers this. I think they cover it quite easily. Look, Anthem has been losing by about 28 points a game. They had played a really good game against Old Glory, but I think they go back to that. I think Utah can run, and they're especially going to run at altitude. I think Utah runs them off the field.
The Anthem are arguably the worst professional team in the world in rugby.
John, tell them who's worse than the Anthem.
New York Mets.
Wow, you really know how to hurt a guy. I'm telling you, it's not about this year with the Mets.
Of course.
It's to be alive in 25. It's about 2025.
King,
that's why they pay 3 times the luxury tax of everybody else, because they don't care about the immediate result.
Bam.
Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, is
Scherzer and DeGrom.
Steve Cohen's a smart guy, as John's mic has been muted yet again.
Haters.
Program. Steve Cohen's a smart guy. He's going to sell all the debt to China for the Mets.
You can't run from the truth, Matt. You can't run from the truth.
Ooh. Gift.
The Gold are back at home. They've gotten a little bit of rest. Chicago's coming off of a close game against Seattle. That's usually where the wear down begins. They beat themselves in, as John mentioned at the top of the show. So you have a lot of opportunity for the NOLA Gold to be able to continue their rise. And I've seen them play well. I think that this, the -4 is perfect for New Orleans. I think they cover and absolutely beat Chicago on their home turf. Chicago's going to come back in a couple weeks, but NOLA takes this one.
So Chicago finally moved Billy Meeks out of the fly half position and put him at 12. They had Luke Carty go back to 15 at fullback, who hasn't been playing, and they put Carlsa, who was playing 15, at 10. That might work after a week of playing with each other, so they could gel in Chicago.
They could, but that NOLA back line is big. That NOLA back line is fast, and that back line knows what they're doing. That game 2 weeks ago that NOLA did was a gelling factor for this week. And
Ed Fido has changed NOLA completely.
Who's he? He doesn't even play in the league. It's Ed Fido, Teofilo Ed Fido.
That's what I just said, you dummy.
I'm going to go to my pick, and Old Glory hosting RFC LA. I'm concerned about Old Glory scoring points, and RFC LA, Riflica, they can score points with the best of them. I like RFC LA -3.
You're picking against Sheehy. You've got a Sheehy car. You're a known suck up. This doesn't ever happen.
You have picked against Sheehy, Paul Sheehy, co-owner of the Old Glory DC franchise, along with Chris Dunleavy, 1,000 times, and he lives 50 yards from you, and you pick against his team all the time.
Yeah, but when I do, I always qualify it with saying, hey, I'm pulling for Old Glory, because I do pull for Old Glory.
I'm pulling for Old Glory as well.
No, you're not. You're supposed to be unbiased. All you pulled for was for New York, and that's why.
All right. We have to go on with the show, so we're gonna go to the Champions Cup, and we're gonna go our Champions Cup pick. And John is getting himself back together. Gift, let's start with you. Who's your pick in the Champions Cup?
Oh man, free the champ. Look, man, the Bulls took a hard one against Leinster. I get it; it happens. They're up there, but now they get to go back home, and they're bringing the French down with them. Look for Lyon to understand why the Bulls are the best South African team in the country right now. I look for the Bulls to absolutely smash Lyon. I think 14.5 actually isn't enough.
Is it Lyon or Lyon?
You know what? Whenever you go down, you're now lying, because you're lying to yourself to believe that you actually have a chance.
Bam! All right, okay.
Bam!
All right, in your face, Lyon, Lyon. John.
Bordeaux versus Saracens. I love Saracens, and I love the big three of Saracens. But last time Saracens played in Bordeaux, they lost by 40 points, 55-15. The spread right now is 8.5. I don't know what Saracens can do to make up that extra 30-something points. I'm pulling for Saracens. I think they're going to lose by double digits.
I'm tempted to go with Harlequins versus Glasgow and take Glasgow, but instead, I'm going to go with Munster with the upset at Franklin's Gardens against the very formidable Northampton Saints. Let's break for commercial. We'll be right back. Hey, U.S. fans, you can tune into every match live on Flow Rugby. How do we know that? Because we're on there all the time. From New York City comes America's longest running and most popular rugby show. The biggest names in Major League Rugby, MLR highlights, and big match previews. Rugby Wrap-Up presents MLR Weekly, made in New York City. All right, we are back, and we are switching codes. We're going to the NRL. John, who's your pick of the week in the NRL?
Give me the Manly Sea Eagles over the Panthers.
They let you down last week.
That's okay. They're still the Manly Sea Eagles.
Oh,
they won in Vegas, and now I'm a fan.
All right, you're tough nut to crack. Gift?
I'm going to look at the Warriors taking on the Rapidos. Russell Crowe's team just got a big win. Warriors got a big win versus the Knights. I look for New Zealand Warriors to continue their stretch of finding their synchronization. Rapidos, they got the well-needed, but they're still not a very great team. And they also lost in Vegas, so it took me out of it a little bit as well, too. So Warriors over Rapidos at 1.5. to cover and win.
Gift, you want to win your $2 Brazilian back? I'll take the Rabbitohs and Russell Crowe.
Bet on your Munster guys then, tough guy.
All right, and my pick is going to be the Broncos, getting 4.5 from the Storm. Let's move on to Super Rugby. John, who do you like in Super Rugby?
I like the Brumbies over the Waratahs.
That's a good pick. That's 8.5. Gift.
Fiji's been absolutely killing it on their home turf, but their worst weakness is that when they know that they're the best, they play the worst. They're going over to Australia. They're going to take on the Rebels, and the Rebels are a little bit struggling, and they're going to cover the spread on the 1.5 against the Rebels. Fijian Drua for the win on Aussie turf because they're hungry again.
Bam!
I'm going a different direction. I'm going to pick the over in the Chiefs Moana Pacifica match. The
Why don't
over.
you do that stupid dramatic pause again, like you're thinking about? Oh, I think I'm going to pick.
Let's move on to our friends in Japan. Japan's Rugby League 1. John, who are you picking? This is going to stun everybody.
I tell you who I'm picking. I'm picking against the New York Mets that are playing rugby in the Kintetsu Liners jerseys. That's who I'm picking against.
He's lumping losers in different sports together, ladies and gentlemen. Gift.
Hey, he's making his point strong. Look, I been taking out Sun Goliath over to Kobe Steel. Look, Sun Goliath are continuing to do their rise. Kobe Steel just ain't hard enough.
All right, I'm taking the Brave Lupus in a tight match versus the Kubota Spears. We're unfortunately at the time where we have to say goodbye, and that is with our picks of the week. John, who's your pick of the week?
The Free Jackals have not looked like the defending champions yet, but they still are the exact same team, and I think they will. They got a great chance this week. Miami coming up to visit. Miami is a good team. I got the Free Jackals to win by more than 4 points.
John, in my DraftKings 5-0 record last week, I told you that Miami would cover that spread and could possibly beat San Diego. And what happened? They blew a 21-5 lead and lost by a point. But they did cover. Gift?
Yo, look, HSV 7s, Hong Kong 7s is happening this weekend. This is a place where the U.S. typically finds its best magic. Look for the USA women to be able to win Hong Kong 7s this year, and look for Argentina to return back to the podium since Dupont is now playing club rugby again. So France doesn't have a chance anymore.
You think the Argentinians going to beat the Fijians in Hong Kong, huh?
Man, Argentina, they've been off for 2 weeks, man. They 2 weeks, 2 tournaments. I think they're going to make their comeback on this one.
What are you doing, Matt?
I'm taking my pick of the week. I'm
simulating drug use on this show. No wonder nobody watches this thing.
Terrible role model. Just terrible role model. Crack is not a good drug to smoke.
They are both muted, ladies and gentlemen. An unprecedented move during the picks of the week, and I am going to go with the Utah Anthem match. I think that's going to be a track meet once again. A lot of points scored. I think Utah wins. I think they cover the spread, but my bet is that they go over 50 points combined. And on that note, I want to thank WWE Hall of Famer turned rugby advocate John Bradshaw Layfield, his pal King Gift Egbelu, the inventor of words, Irish rugby legend George Hook. And thank you for tuning in. Please check out our other shows, including MLR Weekly, the College Rugby Wrap-Up. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Sign up for our weekly newsletter. And please join our American Red Cross.
The yard sale. Would you wrap up the show?
And please join our American Red Cross blood donor team.
That's why the edit has to be cut so much.